absolutely wild as Vern Gagne's All-Star Wrestling goes coast to coast and continent to continent. The greatest wrestlers in the world.
He may be an apprentice carpenter, but I guarantee you he is a seasoned ring veteran.
I've been hit with bar stools, bar rags, barmaids.
I'm talking to you.
They're scared that Hulkamania's still running wild. Oh, yeah. I got a big fat wife and 9 kids at home, and I gotta feed them.
And take a look at Jesse the Body in real life.
Open your hand once, if you would.
You want to see it?
This is absolutely unbelievable. Totally, completely out of control.
He's coming in over the top. Hey! Look out!
You don't have to look out. It's me. It's me. It's Tubbsy. It's me. You don't have to be afraid of me. You know who I'm afraid of? Polish Show and Slick Mick. That's why we're always at different places. That's why you never see us together at the same time. It's kind of like Clark Kent and Superman. Never see them at the same time.
I'm thinking more along the lines of Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
Yeah, that would be. You notice that none of us are. You notice that none of us are Scrooge McDuck, like swimming in his bag. By the way, you ever see the Open to DuckTales where Scrooge McDuck is like, he like dives into that big pile of coins? It's like, if you dive into a big pile of coins, you're going to get hurt. That's why I don't have money.
No, it didn't matter to Scrooge McDuck. And, along the lines of never being in the same place, same time, would that be like Sergeant Slaughter and Super Destroyer 2?
Oh, yeah, I should have made a wrestling reference instead of us going down to DuckTales. Yeah, that's my fault.
That's quite all right.
You want to start the show over, or should we just go with it?
No, let's just swim ahead.
Hey guys, welcome welcome in AWA Unleashed. We're the preeminent #1 podcast.
Well, we used to be until this opened.
Yeah, don't go by us.
Yeah, 199 episodes in, and we finally botched the open. And by we, I mean me. But it took me almost 4 years to figure out how to work a cartoon reference, a DuckTales reference, into the beginning of the show. So, I mean,
and you also learned to never do that again.
You know what? In another 200 episodes, I'll figure out how to work another random cartoon reference into the beginning of it. Hey, you know what? Hakuna Matata. Okay? It's a wonderful phrase.
Bless you.
Bless me. Hey, we're so glad to have you guys along for episode 199, which is just incredible to think about, which means that we got 200 coming next week. We kind of came up with a fun idea. We'll tell you about that at the end of the episode. And it's a way that we've asked for input, but we're going to reiterate that. So that's going to be at the end. So stay tuned for that. First of all, guys, want to get into the shilling gear. First of all, pinfall members. We continue to have our pinfall members that are just growing and growing and growing, and we love it. A pinfall member, $4.99 a month. You get the podcast a day early. You get our monthly video, our watch along. It's Mystery Science Theater 3000 meets professional wrestling. You get the weekly Back to Ringside with Mick and myself. You get a thank you letter from me, personally written, hopefully legible, with an Unleashed sticker and a magnet. And you get 5 photos from Slick Mick's Pick. So we got that. We like to think it's the best value in wrestling podcasting. And then as well, if you're interested in AWA Unleashed swag, merchandise, you get your Slick Mick merchandise. Go to tpublic.com/Unleashed Plus. And I will continue to put that up throughout the course of the day. I'm going to put it there, right there. We're going to play that throughout the course of the day. So tried to get all the shilling done, 4.5 minutes with a DuckTales reference. I think we're doing okay.
We are, and this is going to be a fun one. This is really going to be good. I like this.
Yeah, well, kind of tell us, you guys, kind of tell us what the subject is. And Mick, this was one that you kind of had, we were kind of spitballing, and I kind of like the idea of how you came up with this week's topic.
Well, if you watch wrestling these days, except for maybe NWA Power Hour or what have you, there's no studio wrestling. It's all glitz and glamour and big arenas and football stadiums and everything. Well, you know what? Today we're going to take you back. We are going to go back, way back, several decades to when I was growing up watching wrestling, and what I think is really the golden age, and that is studio wrestling. And a lot of people have said, "Hey, how did they work those tapings? Did you have meet and greets before? Hey, well, long before the days of meet and greets." But it's fun stuff. We'll describe a typical Saturday at the studio. We'll relive some of the memories, some of the more memorable moments from the 1960s and 70s at the old AWA TV studio. We'll ask Joe for his expertise on production-wise, as far as the change has been made. It's going to be fun. Good stuff.
Well, before we get into it, I think we need to sort of state the obvious. Where today's show, we're talking about the studio wrestling. It was a known wrestler versus what we called back in the day a jobber. It was live for the most part until it got later on, but it was used to promote an upcoming match, to make the wrestler who is going to be, in our case, at the Minneapolis Auditorium or St. Paul Auditorium, to make them look unbeatable, make them look tough, to make people want to go and see it. Conversely, today's wrestling, you will see star versus star pretty much every match. In fact, it's sort of a flip-flop, wouldn't you say, Mick, where back in the day, every once in a while, you would see star versus star, but it was mainly a star versus a jobber. Today, when's the last time you saw a jobber or enhancement talent work a TV show?
Total flip-flop. And back in the day, Joe, you're right. Every once in a while, they would bring in a star. They would bring in a surprise match, surprise opponent that the heel could whine about to promoter Wally Carbo that he didn't sign a contract to wrestle this particular guy. Today, as far as the jobbers are concerned, no. I mean, every once in a while, you'll have, when somebody's debuting and they want them to tear through somebody, they'll bring in the local jobber, and the crowd will chant, "Let's go, jobber." That shows you the difference in wrestling from back in the day. But night and day, 2 out of 3 fall matches. Early on, it was in black and white, and some of my most fun memories are at the old studios.
So before we get to that, I want to kind of piggyback off of what you guys were talking about. When you've got the enhancement talent and you had the star, I feel like when the star got pushed or the star got beat, it meant something. Like you made a star, like you made somebody big time if an enhancement talent beat a star for whatever reason. And that goes into what people call the 50-50 booking. And I'm not an insider, I'm not in the business, so I don't, people talk about it like they know. I'm not going to sit here and know, because I don't know the inner workings of every little booking meeting. But it used to mean something. And really the last time that I can remember something like this was back in WWF when Sean Waltman was nobody knew who he was, and he beat Razor Ramon. And next thing you know, you got the 1, 2, 3 kid, and Sean Waltman he became a star on that level, but he was presented as an enhancement talent. I know it's not AWA, but I think that's the last time that I can remember, a no-name really coming out and beating a big-time name. And it's like, wow, this means something.
On AWA TV, Chris, the way they would do it, first of all, if Kenny J or George Gadasky every once in a while would come up with that win, they'd beat Jesse Ventura or Adrian Adonis or somebody on TV. Of course, that didn't elevate them to stardom, but it was like, holy shit. And it gave the heels a reason to get suspended. The flip side of that is occasionally there would be a star who would arrive on the scene, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later on, that fans in the AWA did not know. But he'd come in the ring, the established star would recognize who he was,
Mhm.
but the fans didn't know who he was, and he would go over on this established star, and that would springboard him in the AWA.
Because there was no internet, like no. I mean, how would you know about these before, like newsletters, or like would you know that somebody's coming in, or was it a complete surprise, like a shoot surprise?
It was more or less a shoot surprise. I mean, every once in a while you would find out where somebody, maybe he was going to leave the territory. There was a rumor that he was going someplace else.
Okay.
But no, you'd never have the inside track back in the day that this guy's going to show up, or he was seen backstage, and what does this mean for next week's TV taping? No, it was nothing like that.
So, Mick, what decades are we talking about today?
We will be specifically talking about the 60s and the 70s, which, from a selfish standpoint, Joe, that's when I was going to the studio. There was studio wrestling in the 1950s going through, the 90s. That's the first place that I was going to, the Calhoun Beach Hotel. And this would be the 1960s. I was going to this location for the TV tapings. I want to say I started in maybe 64, maybe 65. And was pretty consistent. And the Calhoun Beach Hotel is where I met Nick Bockwinkel and all the great angles from back in the day with the AWA stars of that era. This is where it would happen. Yes, it was a hotel. Across the street was Lake Calhoun. And this was a hotel / a catering business. They held a lot of weddings there and what have you. But I believe it was on the 4th floor, and I should know if it is or isn't. They had that old TV studio, and it was just so great to watch wrestling there. This was the first building that they held matches in.
Were the AWA offices, were they in the same building?
They were not. They were at the Dyckman Hotel at this point.
Okay, yep.
So the Dyckman Hotel is in downtown Minneapolis, hop, skip, and a jump. This is where they went in the early 1970s, I believe 73 or 74. Can't remember which. They moved from the Calhoun Beach Hotel, which was being renovated, and they moved out to Golden Valley, Minnesota. The AWA matches at Calhoun Beach were on WTCN television, which became KARE 11. It was 11 in both cases, but they changed the call letters of the studio. So this is the Golden Valley location throughout the 1970s.
So just an aside, if I'm remembering correctly, in the late 60s or in the 60s and early 70s, wasn't WTCN the independent?
It was.
Yep. And then all of the network, CBS stayed with Channel 4.
Yep.
ABC used to be Channel 9, and NBC used to be Channel 5 for those that are watching here in the Twin Cities.
Yeah, NBC was 5 and then became 11 later on. And WCCO was always Channel 4. But as you said, Channel 5 was NBC and then became ABC over the years. So it's alphabet soup, I realized, to people around the horn. Yeah, that was the possession or projection, I guess.
Yep. So how did people get tickets for these, Don? I mean, because now you go Ticketmaster, you got all these different ways you could get it. Like, number one, first of all, how did people get tickets? And then I got a couple questions about like the studios and capacity and taping days.
Tickets were like any other television show. If you were going to Let's Make a Deal, or if you were going to be in town for such and such a show, write in for tickets. This is the first one. You notice the address, WTCN TV Studios on Dean Boulevard, the Calhoun Beach Hotel. And this particular ticket was November 4, 1972. They would stamp the tickets with the date that you could attend. But they were so loosey-goosey. If they did not have a big crowd when it was time to let people in, and the guy came and said, "Hey, I'm not supposed to be here until next week. Come on in." It was pretty loose. They wanted a full studio. But this, again, is WTCN TV. Now, I think we've got and there you go. You got now Metro Media Television. Metro Media 11, which is now at WTCN TV. That Boone Avenue North address was in Golden Valley, Minnesota. That was the second picture that I showed you.
And where and for those that aren't here, like where is Golden Valley in terms of the Twin Cities? Kind of explain it, because I would say it's just west of Minneapolis.
Perfect.
It's a suburb of Minneapolis, just west of downtown.
I would say, yep, 10 minutes out of downtown by freeway, and you're in Golden Valley, right on the highway, Highway 55 in Golden Valley. And Metro Media Television, they took over WTCN from Chris Kraft. Chris Kraft was the original WTCN TV. Metro Media took over, and Metro Media, they were not big wrestling fans, unfortunately. And when they were scheduling a meeting with Vern Gagne to negotiate their contract, and Vern decided to play tennis instead of attend the meeting, they moved the AWA to some pretty terrible TV slots for a while. This is really interesting. You're watching, this is WTCN TV channel 11, and this is when it is still at the Calhoun Beach Hotel. And what I want to point out about this, you see it says Mondays and Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit of a misnomer, because what they would do, they would tape Saturdays 6 to 7:30, but they also would tape a couple of matches that would air on Monday nights. But they were creating the illusion that Monday night was also a live TV taping. It wasn't. Joe, I know you want to jump in. It's similar to what they will do today, when they will tape a Collision or whatever after the main show, the Dynamite show or what have you.
Well, what strikes me is that, well, first of all, I know it was more than just a couple of matches. I mean, you're talking about an hour and a half show. So what if they had, typically we'd have, for a 1 hour show, we would do 5 matches. So figure 7 matches, additional matches that they would have had to have done for that Monday show. So they're essentially doubling the taping of not only matches, but then interviews in order to get that Monday show, unless they were, replays really weren't even a thing. And I know that because Vern didn't keep anything. So how'd they facilitate that Monday show?
Here's what's interesting about it. First of all, you've got that hour and a half, but they didn't tape a full boat of shows. Part of it was because Vern initiated professional boxing as part of that Monday night TV show. He would have, maybe the first hour was All-Star Wrestling, and then Vern got into promoting boxing on a local level. He managed a heavyweight by the name of Ron Marsh. This was Vern's meal ticket. He was going to try to revive pro boxing in the Twin Cities. So the last half hour, 45 minutes, hour of this Monday night show turned into pro boxing. So you didn't have that many matches. There were pre-taped interviews that they put in for the Monday night show, so they had that done. Back in the day too, Joe, on an average TV show, you might have only had 3-4 matches, because those were in the 2 out of 3 fall days as well. So a 2 out of 3 fall enhancement match might go 20 minutes or a half an hour. The other thing that I would say, and this is interesting, I said that they tried to create the illusion that this was live. Reggie Parks is a perfect example. Reggie wrestled on a Saturday night show, and they had taped an interview with Reggie for Monday night, where Marty O'Neill says to Reggie, I can't believe you're willing to wrestle twice on the same show. And no, it didn't quite work that way. Everything was smoke and mirrors. And they would show an old Reggie Parks tape or something and claim that he was wrestling twice on the same show. The Monday night show did not last all that long. I forget how long exactly in terms of months or years or what have you. But it was interesting. And we've talked many times, that 6 to 7:30 time slot on a Saturday. This is extraordinary. If you think about this, the guys come in and they're taping interviews for Around the Horn from the early afternoon into just before the TV matches come on. And I mean literally just before. After that, after the hour and a half TV, they get right in their car and they go down to the Minneapolis Auditorium for the house show, which might start, sometimes they started at 9 o'clock at night. So can you imagine how long a day this was for the guys? Interviews and then television and then another show where you're not out of the building till midnight. It got to be one hell of a long day on taping day.
Well, I remember the start time for the Twin Cities matches were always 8 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken, but they never started at 8 o'clock.
Never started.
8:30 was early typical, but like you said, it could be 9 o'clock. Well, that's because they got done doing a live show at 7:30. Then they had to drive, put on their boots and trunks, and get ready for the live a live house show. Unique and weird and different all in one.
You know, a lot of the guys.
How big were the studios?
150.
Okay.
You know, maybe tops 100, 150. When you watch the Calhoun Beach Hotel matches, you saw pretty much one side of the ring. Occasionally, they would go to the other side of the ring where they had like maybe a row or two of people. But primarily, the crowd was what you could see. You know, probably maybe 100 people on that one side.
Okay, because that brings me to my next question. I don't want to get caught too much in the weeds here because I want to make sure that we're still staying on time here.
Yep.
You mentioned the capacity. What about the camera angles? Because I think that the camera angles were very important into the perception of how packed it was, right? I mean, is that because we hear that all the time?
Joe, this is your wheelhouse, buddy.
In the early days of the AWA studio matches, whether this is at the Calhoun Beach Club, right, Mick?
Correct.
This was camera one. This was and it was from a corner angle, which was an interesting angle. But even when it got to WTCN studios later on, they only used 2 cameras. They would have one wide, and then they would have a second one that would be on the floor. That would be used mainly for interviews, wrestler introductions. But Vern had this phobia called tightitis. He absolutely hated if a director would go in and get a close-up of, especially during a match. Like if it's an introduction, they're in their corner, that's one thing. An interview, that's a different thing. But during the match itself, Vern would scream, "You got tightitis, you got to pull back, I got to see the move." And I think partly was he was afraid that they'd be able to see that the boys were talking to each other.
Of course.
On the other side of it, television back in those days wasn't a multi-camera angle production. I'm going to refer back like the original Honeymooners TV show, 1 camera.
Yeah.
And it was live. So we're talking 60 years ago, we're in 1965. AWA was functioning. So let's even go 55 years into 1970 is a 2-camera shoot. Could they have done more? Probably, but when you're in that small little studio, they would have, and I'm referring more to the TCN days, but they would have audience here, like on the back side, and then off to the right, sort of a flip-flop of the Calhoun Beach Club.
Yep.
The talent would come in from the left, and then on the near side would be the hard cam, and then off there'd be a little cubby area off to the right. That would be the blue backdrop with the AWA logo, maybe.
Yep.
And that's where they would do the interviews. So when I stop and think production-wise, how far it's come. Take a look at any modern day, even NWA stuff. They got more than 2 camera angles doing their show today.
Chris, can you put that picture back up of Superstar Graham?
Sure.
And the studio? And I just want, just for shits and giggles, you see the referee there, and you look at down by the referee, that second guy in from the corner with his arms folded in the white T-shirt. Yep, that's the old slick one. 1973, when superstar Billy Graham arrived in the AWA.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah, and always got the front row tickets. Yeah, and that is referee.
Were your tickets, were they general admission when you'd get them? Then you just like first come, first come, first served in terms of where you'd sit?
Yep, and I had an in. Myself and my buddy Bruce Buckstein had an in because the guy that I mentioned on this show before, the old grandpa sitting in the front row, Nick DeGidio, who had been going to the matches from the 1950s on, always had a handful of tickets, and we ingratiated ourselves to Grandpa Nick, so we never wrote in for tickets. They were always there for us, except when Nick Bockwinkel ran Red Bastien's head into the steel ring post. Grandpa Nick got pissed off at us because we were Bockwinkel fans. So for the next show, we did not get in. He would not give us our tickets after we went out to the Calhoun Beach Hotel. But yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
So, Mick, I'm guessing that I noticed on the tickets it said you must attend 15 minutes before. I'm guessing you were there much earlier.
Joe, they they let us in at 5:30. And right now I'm going to stay specifically with the Calhoun Beach Hotel, because if I remember right, when they moved out to Golden Valley, people had to wait outside for the doors to open. Maybe in the wintertime they opened up a lobby door or what have you. At the Calhoun Beach Hotel, people were lined up. There were some seats, and then the line went out into the hall, but you were 50 feet from the TV studio. So you could hear all the guys cutting their promos and everything else, all the screaming if they were pre-taping an angle or everything. You're sitting out there hearing it. But as far as when I arrived, the doors opened at 5:30. I was there at 1 o'clock. So,
oh my God.
What the hell did you do for 4+ hours?
Well,
seriously.
You know, what else?
Mark.
Oh, huge. Are you kidding? Part of it was, especially going into the 1970s, I wanted to talk to Nick. And, you never knew when Nick was going to make himself available. But, there was a group of us, 15, 20 people who got to be great friends. We were always at the studio together. Wally Carbo's niece, Lisa, God rest her soul, she was there. And just a whole bevy of people that sat and talked about the business. And, we'd show pictures to each other. Where that 3 hours or 4 hours went by pretty quickly. I think we're going to kind of get into a typical day at the studio itself. Envision yourself now. You're sitting out there. You're waiting for the doors to open. So a police officer, Officer Bob O'Brien, would come out and he would say, "All right, everybody, we're going to let you in. Come in this way." And Doug Summers was there. He would help to take the tickets. Pretty boy Doug Summers, no pretty boy back in the day, but he was he wanted to get into the business. He started as a referee, but he was the ticket taker. And you would go into the studio, and again, you're a half hour before. They said get there 15 minutes. People were there earlier on. Roger Kent would give his spiel. Roger, who was smoking like a fiend there in the studio back in the days when you could do that, and he would always instruct the people. Now, smoking is allowed only by the working crew. Nobody else can come in here and smoke. And Roger would sit there at his ringside table, puffing away and ringing the bell and announcing a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever else he had with him. And then the officer would come up, Bob O'Brien, and he would have a follow-up speech. And he would say to everybody, once the show starts, we don't want you to get up and walk around. They wanted that full studio. They wanted everybody to stay in their same location. The officer would, of course, say, if there's something you have to do, it's down the hall to the right. Go do it right now, because once the show starts, you're not going to be able to move. And that was pretty much the way it went. It was so great. And Kent would always say, and what a difference between then and now. He would say, don't hold up any signs. Don't wave at the camera, because then you're putting your hand in front of your friend's face. He's got his hand in front of your face. Nobody is going to see you anyway. Don't do it. Now they encourage it. It's 180 turnaround. Some of the other rules at the TV station, the live interviews, you could hoot and holler when the wrestlers were cutting their promos, babyface or heel or whatever. And again, you're right, Joe. It was that interview backdrop after a match. They just go and they were in full view of the audience. But when Vern came out to do his commercials for Geralac and Jera Speed and Ziggity Who, you did not utter a peep. You could not even breathe when Vern came out there to do his commercials. So it was so great. And then they start the show and boom, boom, boom. It was just, one match after another. The enhancement talent, the jobbers would come out from what was my left at the TV studio, from behind the curtain. If they were taping for a Monday night, you might see the same jobber wrestle twice, and then he would come out for the second time. People didn't want to see him the first time, let alone the second time, and they go, "Oh shit, not you again." So I mean, that was kind of the environment at the studio. You had a control room where Wally and Vern and maybe some of the boys were watching all the action. You could see them through a window.
Al DeRusha would have been in there too.
Yes, absolutely. Al would have been in there. The TV studio itself, Joe, you know this, Calhoun Beach Hotel, it also doubled as a studio for the Casey Jones children's TV program in the Twin Cities that Al DeRusha produced and directed. So you would see Casey Jones's makeshift train that he drove, a cardboard cutout of a train off in the corner. And so it was great. The environment was great. The fans were typically make a lot of noise. If they were quiet, one of the heels would certainly ignite them by saying something to them so they wouldn't shut up for the rest of the night.
So you brought him up earlier, and anybody that's seen any one of our previous podcasts very well know that you and Nick had a very close relationship. And you alluded earlier in the show about how this is where you met Nick. So explain, give us the story of that very first meeting of Nick Bockwinkel at one of these tapings.
I think I've mentioned this before on the show. Nick immediately, this is a guy, boy, look at this. Look at this, Joe. Look at that goofball on the right with the sideburns, the horn-rimmed glasses.
You got the neck of a giraffe there.
That's really an embarrassing picture, actually, and I'm sorry I provided it to you, but that was that was an interview that I was conducting with Nick, and what Nick is doing right there, he's looking at his watch. Oh. Because this had, he's got his watch in his hand. This had extended a little bit beyond how long Nick wanted the interview to go. But I met him June 12th, 1971, a couple of weeks after we had held up a sign in his honor at the Minneapolis Auditorium. Some fans complained about the sign. The ushers took it down, and I approached Nick at the studio after one of the tapings, and I said, hey, this is what they did. They took our sign down, and now how terrible, how horrible is that? How did you survive that, young fella? Whatever Nick said at the time. And then I just got up the courage and I said, I want to start a fan club for you. And, Nick's infamous line, long as I don't have to get involved in any way, shape, or form, especially financially, you can go ahead, live it up. That was one of Nick's favorite expressions as well. Live it up, my boy. So that was, and again, that was 71. Now this is in 1972. Oh God, honest to God, no wonder I didn't get any dates in high school. The trophies that I am holding there, one was for Nick and one was for me for the Bockwinkel Brigade. We had gotten the Wrestler of the Year and the Wrestling Journal Fan Club Newsletter of the Year award. I forget where they had this particular convention, but
Well, what, did you host the convention?
No,
and
no,
decide
no,
who
no,
won?
no. I didn't host the convention.
Oh, okay.
Didn't stuff the ballot box. And I'm not sure if you can read Nick's signature on this one, Joe, but what he has signed is to Mick, for Christ's sake. That's what he has written in his excitement over the two mini trophies. This would have been 1972, and that god awful wallpaper behind us at the Calhoun Beach Hotel out in the lobby. So many of the promo pictures over the years were taken right there. But yeah, so this is first one was 71. This picture is 1972. And as far as Nick coming out and talking to us, he didn't have to do this. This is one thing. This is TV taping day. They're taping these interviews for Around the Horn, and Nick would make time. He would, if it was 10, 15 minutes, he would come out periodically to say hello, greet the fans, sign a couple autographs, and then go back in.
What was he the heel, Nick Bockwinkel, when he came out?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. But he had his local heathens in the Bockwinkel Brigade that would cheer his every move. But yeah, he was full blown 1971, 72 heel. Absolutely.
So, out of the two locations, which one did you personally like better?
Calhoun Beach, bar none.
Okay, why?
First of all, it was the first studio that I attended the matches at. So I think from just a melancholy standpoint, I enjoyed that more, and just the atmosphere. You've got this old studio. It was more intimate than it was at KARE 11. KARE 11 Studios was that was a TV studio. That was a TV station. The All-Star Wrestling tapings, they're in a small TV studio in a hotel. So you've got the difference between a bona fide TV station and just a location for the matches. Plus the 1960s, I just loved the wrestlers that were there, and it was the newness of it, and it just meant more.
So when you're talking about the schedule, you had the live TV, and then they would go to the arena for the actual shows. When did that change? Because I got to imagine that something like that takes its toll on the body.
It did. The thing, well, first of all, they cut down the number of shows that they were doing. That was a big thing. And we mentioned before on the podcast, they were running weekly for a while in the early 1960s. Minneapolis and St. Paul would alternate. I mean, so you can imagine just how nuts that was. But the AWA, a lot of times they would tape 4 or 5 weeks in advance, like they did in Vegas, Joe, because at that point, the AWA was now running Milwaukee and Chicago and Green Bay and Rockford, and they would Winnipeg, yep, Winnipeg, heavy on the Winnipeg,
yeah,
right? And they would, of course, bicycle the tapes Around the Horn, so they maybe only did, one night per month of an actual TV taping at Channel 11, but it didn't make any difference, because in terms of the schedule, that's still one hell of a tight schedule. And what they would always do is set up an angle right at 7:25 or 7:30, and then Marty O'Neill, God bless him, would say, "Run, don't walk to get your tickets. We're going to settle this tonight in just an hour or so at the Minneapolis Auditorium." It was picture perfect.
But wasn't it late 70s at some point where it went from All-Star Wrestling went from airing from 6 to 7:30, and then they moved it to Sunday mornings?
Right.
Well, do you remember what year that was? And it was Sunday mornings, by the way, 11 to 12. And I remember that because my mom had a difficult time being able to watch All-Star Wrestling, and there's a 12 o'clock mass. So I often thought to not go to church, but that's another story.
Well, no, you made a good choice there.
Yeah.
I would guess, Joe, thinking back in my head, just envisioning TV tapings and who was there then, I want to say mid to late 1970s, they might have gone to the Sunday morning time slot by the time Lord Alfred and Super Destroyer and Mark II and what have you were in town. I think that's when they started. And then, of course, I mentioned they eliminated the Monday night show, but it was obviously much easier for them to do the one taping And then, air it on Sunday morning and give people the whole day to get down and get their tickets. Although, by the 1980s, they were almost sold out by the time that the Sunday morning TV show aired.
Yep. But there was something magical about seeing it on Saturday nights, having it be done at 7:30, knowing that it was live back then, and the excitement and the fervor to, Mom, can we go, please? Let's go. My mom would be more excited than I would be. And magical times.
That was the whole idea, Joe. Get everybody stoked. You didn't have to wait 3 weeks, of build up for the main event. It's right now. You just saw him kick the shit out of somebody on TV. Now you can see the babyface get his revenge just an hour from now. Great.
So, do you have any favorite angles or incidents that happened back in those days on either the Calhoun Beach Club or TCN, I guess?
Well, I think I'm gonna stick with the 1960s, and I've got a series of angles that I remember, and I know we don't have pictures for all of these, maybe just a couple, but there was one. I'll tell you the ones that I remember. Stan Crusher Kowalski and a guy by the name of Joe Scarpello. Joe, who was a babyface friend of Vern Gagne's. They did an angle on TV where Stan was going to test jumping Joe's stomach muscles. And instead of jumping from the top rope onto Scarpello's stomach muscles, he jumped onto his throat. Did that devious Stan Kowalski. I don't know how many years ago that was, 60 years ago. I remember it like yesterday. Dr. Bill Miller, under the mask as Mysterious Mr. M, wrestled babyface Larry Hennig on television, and Larry took the mask off of Mr. M, who quickly covered his face and ran back to the locker room so as not to reveal his identity. I remember that. I have mentioned before Gene Kiniski, former AWA heavyweight champion, hitting Vern over the head with a bottle of Vern's Geralac liquid vitamin, taking a swig and then spitting it all over Vern's carcass as Vern laid on the mat. We got an incident with Man Mountain Campbell, who became a wrestler by the name of Luke Brown. Tiny Mills hit him over the head with a ball peen hammer or a claw hammer right in the middle of the TV studio ring. Young, impressionable me, 9-10 years old. That has stuck with me all these years. We go a little bit farther on when Nick Bockwinkel, in an interview with the original Paul Diamond, calls Paul Diamond out onto the interview set, and Nick had injured Diamond the previous week, injured his knee. And Nick invites Diamond out. He's going to apologize for injuring him, but Nick kicks out the crutch that Paul Diamond was using to hold himself up on television. And all of a sudden, Paul Diamond goes through a trapdoor, disappears from the TV screen altogether, which, of course, solidified Nick as a bona fide heel back in 1971. Billy Robinson, couple of matches. His debut against Kobayashi, defeats him on television. Next week, he defeats Blackjack Lanza on television. Great stuff. And I know we've got a couple of pictures here. Chris, if we could get the one photograph up of a studio angle. I'm not sure if this is Crush or if this is Dr. X. This was one of the great angles. 1970. Dr. X is still a heel, but he's teaming up with Larry Hennig in a tag match. Dr. X is going babyface right now, and he points out to the referee, Dennis Stamp, that Larry Hennig has used a foreign object to defeat his opponent. Dr. X points this out to the referee. You see Larry Hennig up in arms. What are you doing? You're betraying me. And I believe it was Larry Hennig and Lars Anderson that beat the shit out of Dr. X in this particular television angle. And again, look at that packed studio. That really looked good. This again is 1970. But Joe, we've talked about this next one, probably the most infamous angle in history.
Oh, yeah.
On AWA television. This is the one where the Crusher and Mad Dog Vachon are engaged in a little battle. Crusher, the Mad Dog blades. Crusher doesn't realize that Mad Dog is still blading while he puts the boots to him on the outside of the ring. And it opened up a 26-stitch gash on the head of Mad Dog Vachon, whose head was absolutely exploding like a squirt gun. One of the more infamous and scary moments on All-Star Wrestling. And it was live in front of, look at the crowd reaction. Look at the people there. This shows you how much the dog was bleeding at the time.
We actually have that clip on one of the pay-per-views. I think when we do the watch along, it's the AWA, the 70s. And when I first saw that clip off of tape, you could just tell in Roger Kent's description that this was not fake, that he was literally screaming for help for Mad Dog. I mean, with every heartbeat, Mad Dog's blood is squirting out of his head. He had cut down into an artery. It was that bad and that dangerous. And Crusher, of course, you can see by his eyes, they're great still. He didn't know. He was just playing along with it. But Mad Dog was seriously injured, and when sign up for the $4.99. Yeah, might be a cheap plug for it, but I'm telling you that $4.99 is worth just seeing that match or the part of the match that we show, because it is really, really gruesome.
And if you looked at that picture, the Mad Dog is covered in blood. I mean, it's just not coming out of his head. He's got it on his neck, his shoulders, Crusher's hand, Mad Dog's arm. This is pretty serious stuff. And apparently, yeah, Crusher was not paying a lot of attention to what was going on there. He should have been. Just as an aside, if you look in the audience, the gentleman on the right, that is the infamous Grandpa Nick DiGidio that we talk about all the time, the man that was the ticket holder and the resident cheerleader and the matches. And to his right or your left, that lady was the wife of television enhancement talent Angel Rivera, who used to come in from Chicago. She would ride with Angel, and whenever Angel was going to be pinned in the match, she would look over at me and wink, and I knew the finish was coming. So just a little bit of a sub. But look at the crowd reaction to the blood from the dog.
That's insane. Joe, do you want to lead us through a quick word association so I can get the pictures up? Because I know that normally we do the word association. If we just go like a minute or so on each of these, and I'll get ready to put the pictures up.
We can go quicker than that. Let's start right off with the legendary announcer Marty O'Neill.
Where is old Martin? And these memories of the TV studios are kind of hit and miss. They're 60s, 70s, and back and forth. But Marty O'Neill was a staple of the matches in the 1960s and 1970s. Such an understated announcer. He was not hyperbole. He was not flowery. He was not over the top. And he was also very short, which made the boys in the interview area look exceptionally big. Marty O'Neill, legendary in the Twin Cities.
And I understand he was a hell of a baseball player. Crusher and Bruiser. Look at that classic shot.
This, to me, exemplifies the old studio. This isn't even a backdrop. They're taping this interview right in front of the fans after one of the matches. That's Marty holding the microphone, Crusher and Bruiser, who may or may not have been baby faces at the time. I don't recall. I'm guessing they probably had turned face at this point. But, Joe, you pointed out before, look at that TV camera. That old WTSN 11, old style, 12,000-ton camera.
Not exactly handheld. We're going to move on to somebody that actually weighed 217 pounds.
There's that infamous Calhoun Beach Hotel.
That's a great transition, Joe. That was fantastic.
Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, that was
great.
Yeah, I didn't mean to step on your transition there, Joe, but that was good. This is the old Calhoun Beach Hotel wallpaper, and that's our friend Playboy Buddy Rose. And if you can imagine, sad to say, by the time he passed, Buddy had added 200 pounds to that frame, if you can imagine. But that's, yeah, early Paul Perchman. This was probably 1974 at the studio.
Our next photo is going to feature, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. High and Mr. Low.
Mr. High, Doug Gilbert on your left, and Mr. Low, Dick Steinborn on the right. They were AWA World Tag Team Champions for all of about 2 weeks, from late 1962 going into 1963. And that's the old studio, again, at the Calhoun Beach Hotel with that curtain in the background. Gilbert and Steinborn, I believe the youngest or one of the youngest AWA Tag Champions ever.
Okay, the next photo, there has to be a warning put onto this one. Not for Wahoo, but I mean, take a look at that. What's with the sunglasses? You're in the TV studio.
I mean, that's Roy Orbison, isn't it?
I'll go into a rendition of Pretty Woman that you'll never forget here in just a minute. But yeah, look at that goof. Once again, there he is. He's moved over a couple of seats. His hair is still lengthy. I was a big Marty O'Neill mark. And Marty, of course, wore the sunglasses in the studio. And so did I. So this one, I'm guessing this is probably 73, maybe 72. Once again, that goof, that hippie, that reject, front row at the matches.
The next photo, unlike the Crusher and Bruiser with the audience, there we go. There's that little wall that was just set up off to the right. And of course, Vern Schilling, his Speed and Gerlach.
Isn't that something? Speed, Gerlach, and then, of course, he added another 15, 20 products by the time he was done. Everything from weed whackers to who knows, lube. I don't know what he was selling. But that is Big Ernie Ladd, and Ernie was every bit of 6'9", 6'10". When he came into the AWA area, he was a babyface and teamed up occasionally with Vern, and of course Marty doing the interview. Speed and Gerlach, ladies and gentlemen, for that old ziggity who.
And look at that long microphone that Marty is holding. The old classic long stick mic.
Gene Rayburn.
Yeah. Match game. Love it.
What do we got next?
Let's move on. We've got Stan Kowalski and Ivan Koloff. And of course, I'll let you mention who is going to be the referee.
The referee there, again, is our good buddy. We got to book him. That is Dennis Stamp, the late Dennis Stamp. And all three of these guys, of course, no longer with us. That is, I'm going to say this is 1972, I would guess. Maybe 71, but I believe 72. You notice Stan is wearing the full jacket there, the communist leaning jacket, and he's managing the late, great Ivan Koloff. And what a tank Ivan was back in the day. I mean, this guy was just a monster. Again, TV studio, black and white, God love it, 53, 54 years ago.
And again, you can see it was the crowd. You had it on the left there, and then on the left, and then on the right. That was two-sided, and that was it.
Yep.
It made it look like it was bigger than it was. Let's move on to another shot that features Stan.
We mentioned earlier on Kobayashi, and Stan at this point, he was still wrestling, but he was not actually a main event wrestler. He might have been a backup on some of the shows, maybe semifinal, but he was managing guys like Kobayashi and Ivan Koloff. And this particular picture of Kobayashi and Stan, 1970, I believe, is when Kobe debuted in the Twin Cities, and he was on a tear. He lost to Vern in a title match at the Auditorium, but he did the job for Billy Robinson's debut in the Twin Cities on Channel 11 back in 1971.
Our next wrestler or next photo is actually magnificent.
Isn't that something? And this one, I'm going to say again, you're looking 1972-ish. That is Don Morocco. Before Don bulked up a little bit, shall we say, and became the monstrous, magnificent Morocco that he became. He was a full-fledged babyface in the territory, teaming up with a guy by the name of Lonnie Kealoha, who eventually morphed into Jimmy Superfly Snuka. And the referee, Greg Gagne.
I thought so. A very, very young Greg Gagne.
Paying his dues.
Yeah. Next photo. You're going to recognize somebody right there in the middle for sure.
I think so. That's your hero. To our left, Bull Belinsky. And that is Andre the Giant and then Edouard Carpentier. And what's interesting about this, if I'm not mistaken, Joe, Andre was brought in as a mystery tag team partner for Belinsky to wrestle Larry Hennig and Lars Anderson later that night at the Minneapolis Auditorium. This was Andre's debut in Minneapolis, St. Paul. This was the night that Hercules Cortez had been killed earlier in the day. Excuse me, and Nick Bockwinkel substituted and beat Vern in a non-title match. But when Andre came out from behind the curtain as the mystery partner, needless to say, Hennig and Anderson threw a shit fit. And who is this guy? This guy's a freak. We don't want to do anything with this guy. It was Andre's debut in the Twin Cities.
What was the audience's reaction when he came through the curtain?
Stunned. Absolutely stunned. And they were, of course, hysterical at the reaction that they got from Hennig and Anderson, who ran away like, Jim Ross's proverbial scalded dogs.
Okay, what do we got next, Chris?
This picture is great. That's, again, that WTCN 11 studio camera. That's Dr. X. And this was a publicity photo that was handed out at the St. Paul Auditorium the night that Dr. X took his own mask off after some 2 years in the territory, or 3 years in the territory, in order to get into the ring with Blackjack Lanza and Bobby Heenan. This was a promotional item they handed out to the fans. Dr. X there with headset and camera in hand at the TV studios. And of course, that particular night, Doc takes his own mask off, reveals himself to be Dick Beyer, and then went on about a 2-year hiatus from the Twin Cities, going all over the world, Japan and what have you. But it was from this point on, the Doc was a babyface in the AWA.
Okay, and I think we've got one more.
I love this. You might not love this, Joe. This is Mr. Bockwinkel, and this is in 1971. The guy that he's jumping onto is Bull Belinsky. And what happened here in this match, it was one of those surprise, out of nowhere, kind of a main event match for TV. Nick accidentally hurt Belinsky earlier in the match, a couple of minutes earlier. And the gracious guy that Nick is, he offered to give Belinsky some time to recuperate. Lay on the mat, recuperate a little bit. We'll give him a couple of minutes to get his wind. Well, Nick got a little impatient. Apparently, Belinsky had exceeded his allotted time to recover, and Nick went to the top rope and finished the Bull off. And I mean, effectively, from this point on, Belinsky was no longer main eventing in the Twin Cities.
And this, of course, was back in the days where you still could come off the top rope.
Correct. That is correct. And again, that old studio, that old curtain behind the wrestlers where the boys came out for their matches. Just magical, magical time.
Love it.
Good stuff. Let's go ahead and give our shout outs and take it home here, guys.
Absolutely. Mine is kind of an overall shout out to everybody who was back in the studio back in the day. So many who are no longer with us, people that I absolutely loved spending time with, made memories with. Wherever you are, here or there, God love you. Shout out to you.
My blind dart throw of the week goes to a new member of our AWA Unleashed Army on Facebook, Paul Verdi. Welcome aboard.
Yes,
And mine's going to go to one of our pinfall members, Jeremy Peoples, out in Virginia. So, Jeremy, appreciate you, man. Thanks for checking in. And I will get you, if you have not received it already, you should be receiving your letter and your pictures from me and Mick. So there you go. Guys, this was fun. It's fun to kind of get some context as to some of the old, some people consider the heydays, the highlights of when the AWA was, really preeminent, no pun intended. Next week is our 200th show, give or take one or two, depending on how I math, but I'm not a math guy. So we're going to say it's 200. This is something we've been working on for a while. We've had to kind of start and stop because of various things that are going on. Number 200 next week, Mick. What do we have?
We want to hear from everybody. We want to hear what your dream matches are in the AWA. Hopefully, they're matches that have not taken place before. I don't recall, guys. Stop me here. If we are asking for specific matches, or if we're just asking like for 3 or 5, dream matches, you put the wrestlers together, singles, tag team, whatever it might be, from back in the day, 70s AWA. Again, it's been a while, so the old brain isn't clicking on all cylinders. But we want to hear from you. This is going to be a fan-based program where you come up with the greatest dream matches of all time.
Yeah, I think I thought we talked about like your dream card. Let's say it's 5 matches.
Okay, let me put some notes on here, Joe, so that way I'm just going to put it on my phone.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so 5 matches.
5 matches. It can be singles. It can be a tag. It can be a 6-man, a cage match, a strap match.
Can they all be like singles? Can they all be strap matches? Can they all be?
Play the booker. You're the booker.
Entire card.
Okay. I think the only rule is that the guy or the wrestler needed to wrestle in the AWA. So in other words, no Stone Cold Steve Austin versus the Crusher, although that would be cool. Anyway, they must have wrestled in the AWA. Be the promoter. What would you love to be your best 5 matches? And we'll share some of them. Maybe we'll compile it and put together our own we will put together our own super cards as well, but that's sort of the premise. We'll share what if some other people have sent in and go from there.
Let's take all eras. Might as well, beginning to the end of the AWA. If you want to put guys in there that were wrestling in 1990, go ahead.
Yep.
If you want Tommy Jammer against Mad Dog Vachon, God love you. If you want that green screen and Mad Dog to bite a hole through it, no on the green screen, Joe?
No, it's a part of the AWA. I'm just shaking my head because I don't want to remember it.
It's going to be fun.
I like it.
Want my email, or what do you think, Chris?
Have them email you,
Okay.
Mick, at slicksnr@gmail.com. Email Mick, slick at
SlickSNR.
You say it because I already screwed it up.
That's all right. SlickSNR@gmail.com. And let's say we want all these in by Wednesday of next week. I'm not sure of what the date is.
Yeah, this is going to air on Tuesday. So
Yeah.
I think we'll do a post on this. So by the time you see this, there'll be a post on our Facebook page. Consider this as a reminder. You have approximately 36 hours.
36 hours, yeah, because this is going to air on Tuesday, and
Right.
we're going to want your submissions by the end of tomorrow night or Wednesday. If you're a pinfall member, you're getting this on Monday. You have an extra day to kind of get your card together. By Wednesday night, you need to email Mick so we can go ahead and put that together for Thursday morning.
I love it. And you know what? 200, 201, 199, whatever, Chris, you know what? We're in the ballpark. What a run. What an absolute run. My friend, Mr. Tubbs, who would have ever thunk it?
Well,
yeah, it's insane.
I can't help but think Mick Karch against Polish Joe in a cage match.
Are you going to be hungover getting into the cage? Because if you are, I don't want any part of you.
If I'm going to be in a match, of course I'm going to follow the greatest training regimen in the history of the world. And of course, I'm talking about the Crusher. So I'd be eating kielbasa.
Oh,
I'd be walking a half a block. I'd have a keg of beer on my shoulder.
Mhm.
And of course, I got to dance with Wanda. Get that cardio up.
Yeah, get that cardio up. I'm already tapping. You win by forfeit.